Hi friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Alessia, but you can call me Ale, and today I wanted to have a chat with you about how to choose a yoga teacher training. Most of the people that follow me are from Italy, but I've received this question also from international friends, and that's why I'm sharing this information about my personal experience here in English. Also because I'd like to expand my YouTube channel and do more videos in English so that they can reach more people and more international friends. So here I am today sharing with you my personal experience and my tips about how to choose a yoga teacher training course. So this is the first time I record a video like that, so I have no idea what is gonna turn out, but I'm here to challenge myself as well, because this is a kind of a format I'd like to keep doing in my YouTube channel. So please, if you enjoyed the video, leave a thumb up and maybe you can leave me a feedback down below. It would be much appreciated. So if you do want to become a yoga teacher, no, let's start from there. I reckon everyone should do a yoga teacher training course, not just to become a yoga teacher, but just to become more aware of your own body, because I think we are really disconnected from our own body, and the yoga teacher training course will help you get in touch with your body again, get in touch with your breath, get in touch with an ancient knowledge about the body and about energy. So I reckon everyone should do a yoga teacher training course to have a better relationship with their own body and with the world outside. So with that said, I can continue. Sorry, I'm not a native English speaker, so sometimes it's a bit hard for me to talk in English, but I'm gonna do my best. So to continue about the yoga teacher training, there are a few things I'd like to share with you here. So first, it's my personal experience. Second is my general tips, and third, it's some specific tips for different types of people who want to attend a yoga teacher training. So let's start from my personal experience. When I've done my yoga teacher training, I was 20 and I've decided to do it in Thailand. I had no idea about how it would have been. I knew it would have been in English, and I'm not a native English speaker, so I knew it would have been a bit hard for me. At that time, I had a boyfriend who was from Australia, so my English was getting better faster and faster, but at the same time I was a bit scared about that, but I really wanted to do it abroad. As long as yoga teacher training is a bit expensive, I really wanted to invest that money going abroad. So I remember I met a girl, I was in Australia and I met a girl there who said me she had been doing a yoga teacher training. So I asked her how much they charged her for a yoga teacher training. She has done it in India, so I asked her and she said me how much it was, and I was like, oh, I saved that money, I really want to learn more about yoga. And I can admit that I've not done a yoga teacher training as first with the purpose of teaching yoga. I wanted to be a graphic designer and painter, so teaching yoga was not really in my mind at that time, but I've decided to do it because I've been starting yoga on YouTube. And after a while, I've been trying to approach in-person classes in Genova, here in Italy, and I didn't really find teachers that inspired me. I was feeling like the teacher was leading the class as a performance and I was an ex-gymnast, so a performance was not really attractive to me because I was really able to use my body, but I knew yoga got something to go more in depth in my own body than a performance itself. So I've decided to do a yoga teacher training because I knew there was something more about yoga that I didn't find in the in-person classes, but that I've been experienced on the classes I've done on YouTube and with international yoga teachers on YouTube and online. So that's why I've done my first yoga teacher training, was to try to figure out more about yoga. And when I've decided to do my yoga teacher training, I've been considering going to India. But I was really young at that time. I was 20, as I said, so it was 4 years ago, almost 5, and I was actually scared to go to India by myself. I was not feeling ready to go to India because I've been speaking with a lot of people that have been going there, and they were saying me that it's a very beautiful place, but at the same time that it's pretty tough. So I was not feeling ready to go there, and I saw some yoga teachers doing some retreats and leading some yoga teacher training in Thailand, and that's why I choose to go to Copenhagen. When I choose my yoga teacher training, I was not really an expert about yoga. I didn't knew about the different styles about yoga, so what I choose was a multi-style yoga teacher training, which was led by 5 different teachers from all over the world. The reviews of the teacher training were really nice. It was not too expensive and not too cheap at the same time. It was in a nice place, in a nice environment. So that's basically how I choose my first yoga teacher training. I really felt it when I saw it on internet. I've been speaking with the girls who gives you information, and I really went there with an open mind and with not much expectation. So this was basically my experience about how I choose my first yoga teacher training, and I can admit, after I've done it, I was not ready to teach. I remember spending like 3 or 4 hours to build one class. I remember after that I went straight to Australia, and I've been starting teaching there, and it was in another language, so transition were really hard for me to express. So it was tough to start teaching yoga, also because after that teacher training I was feeling in my own bubble. You know, after 1 month you have been away in an environment that you just eat like fresh and clean food, and all the people are really like present. I was coming back to society. I was like, oh my god, also because Copenhagen, the island I've done my teacher training, is an island and it's really tiny. So the atmosphere there, it's super nice because Copenhagen rised up on rose quartz minerals, so it has like these 2 different polarities about really hippie people and really spiritual people. So coming back to society, I was like, whoa, oh my god, where are we living? So be aware and keep in mind that after yoga teacher training you would not be ready to teach, and you really have to put your effort into teaching, and at the same time you might be a bit shocked coming back to society. So consider that before to go to a teacher training, I would have loved to knew it, so that when I would have been back to society, I would have been maybe a bit more ready to that shock. Especially food was a real shock for me. After 1 month eating just like fresh, raw food was like really crazy to get back to supermarket and to see what I have been eating since before the teaching training. So this was my experience basically, and after that I took 2 years to choose a 300 hours teacher training. So basically now I choose it, I will have to go it in 1 month, so I'm really stoked about that. It's not in India still, I will go to Bali, and that one is still like not too cheap and not too expensive. So talking about money, I've seen a lot of teacher training in India going from $900 for a teacher training. In India it's a lot of money, of course, for them, but like for us it's really cheap. And what I can say is that most of my last teacher training and this teacher training are about 3,000 plus the travel, and this is quite a lot of money, but at the same time you have to consider that maybe you spend 2,500 for the teacher training itself, and then the accommodation, it's another expense you have to consider. So when you do a teacher training you can go in a multiple room, or you can be in a double shared room, or you can be in a single room, and that is going to determine the amount of the price and the growth of the price. So I choose those teacher training not just for the price, of course, but the price is affordable. If you save a bit of money money you can afford a teacher training like that. I would not suggest to go personally to like super expensive teacher training unless you are a really expert teacher and you really know what you're gonna do and why you're gonna do that and how you're gonna invest the money. Also because actually as a yoga teacher it's pretty hard to make money, especially here in Italy, so maybe you don't want to spend that amount of money to then after that have a salary of like 10 or 15 euros each class you teach, because it would be really hard to spend $7,000 on a yoga teacher training and then get back home and earn like 15 bucks for a yoga class. So consider the amount you can spend and then go for it. At the same time, I would suggest you that if it's your first yoga teacher training and you are not an expert, you haven't been practiced for a long time, I would suggest you to go on a multi-style yoga teacher training, as I've done, which was Hatha yoga, Vinyasa yoga, Yin yoga, restorative yoga, a bit of tips about yoga for pregnant women, and it was a really nice overview about the yoga practice. Of course, we have done also a lot of philosophy, but I will do more philosophy in my 300 hours. In my 300 hours, I choose it because I really wanted it to be deep about philosophy. So I took a lot of time to choose it because a lot of teacher trainings are really about asana. And as I said, I'm an ex-gymnast. I'm not interested in learning about how to do poses because I know how to move my body. I'm interested in how to share the yoga tradition and how to know more about the philosophy so that I can take more history and more spiritual information in my yoga classes so that I can be more deep when I teach. So this is why I took a lot of time to choose my 300 hours. I wanted to do it in India, but after I checked a lot of yoga teacher training there, I realized that I want to go to India and travel there and like be attracted to an ashram there and not plan what I'm gonna do, because I think I've never been to India yet. It's in my plan hopefully in the next 2 years, but I really wouldn't like to go there with like 30 or 35 days that I have to be in a yoga teacher training and then I won't experience the vibe of yoga there. So I would rather like move there and look around and then choose where to practice and practice with people around, and you know, I want to have a more free experience once I go there. Also because something I haven't been speaking about is the length of a teacher training. So basically when you do a 200 hours teacher training, it like 28 days was mine, so maximum it's like 30 days, minimum I would say like 25, but don't go less than 25 days, and my 300 hours it's gonna be 35 days, so it's a long time. So it's better you're really aware of where you're gonna go, so because it's a long time of course to be there. Yeah, this was basically my experience and my personal history with yoga teacher training. So let's go to the part of my personal suggestion about yoga teacher training. So as I said, if you're new to yoga and you don't really know a lot about the yoga practice, I would suggest you to do a multi-style yoga teacher training. On the other hand, if you have been practicing for a lot of time and you have your referent yoga teacher you always go to practice with, of course you might have someone that this person would suggest you to go to, and maybe if you do practice Ashtanga, of course you would go to a specific Ashtanga yoga teacher training. If you do practice Hatha yoga, you would go to a Hatha yoga teacher training, but I would suggest you to do your 200 hours on a specific style, just if you had a long time practice and just if you know that you want to teach that style of the yoga. Otherwise, I would suggest you to do a multi-style, because I think for me it's really beautiful to teach like different kind of styles. Of course, I don't teach Ashtanga because I'm not a certified Ashtanga yoga teacher, but I do like to teach Yoga Nidra, I do like to teach Vinyasa, I do like to teach Yin Yoga, restorative yoga, so I like to have a variation in my classes. So option for 200 or 300 hours are to do an intense yoga teacher training like 28, 30, 35 days, or to have a year or 2 years long just in the weekend. So there are like different formats. You can also choose to do a 1 or 2 years yoga teacher training if you do have a full-time job or a part-time job and you can't take 1 month to go away, because I understand it's a lot of time. I think, of course, that if you do it, I would suggest you to then like take at least 1 week to go to do a full immersion, maybe a retreat, or maybe it's part of your teacher training if you do it during 1 year or 2 years. And of course, it's not less deep, but it's like less intense physically. Probably it's less demanding, but at the same time you have the time to digest the information that if you do an intense yoga teacher training, you don't really have a lot of time to digest the information. My yoga teacher training was structured that we do have like 6 days of practice. So we would wake up in the morning at 6 a.m., have 1 hour meditation, then 2 hours asana classes, then a brunch, and then we would have other 2 hours of theory, then another little break, then we would have other 2 hours of asana practice, then other 2 hours of theory, and then it would have been like 7:30 p.m. so we would just have the time to have dinner and then go to sleep. This is like 6 days a week. Then we did have the Sunday off, but on Sunday we had to study because on Monday we would have a test about what we have done in the week. So each Monday we would have that test, and then the last test would have been a test about all the 4 weeks, and then the mark of the yoga teacher training would have been a balance between all of those tests we have done. So I didn't really had time to explore the place. And another thing I would recommend you is to, if you go and you do an intense yoga teacher training, I would recommend to get there earlier, like a few days before, and if you do have the chance to stay there after you have completed the yoga teacher training. And this is why I personally haven't been taking the time for doing that. So I arrived the day after the teacher training started, and when it ended, the day after I left. And I was not happy about that, because once I finished it, the yoga school would give us students the space to start to teach yoga. And I think it doesn't matter if that was for free, because actually I think it was like for free yoga classes, but it's a way for you to start practicing with a lot of people, because there are a lot of people there, and just to start to be more fluid with your teaching, to get the feedback of the students. And then after we have finished the teacher training, there would have been other opportunities to do some work hand in hand with the teacher that have been leading the teacher training. So this is something you might want to plan before, especially if you do an intense yoga teacher training in the other side of the world. But it's something I would recommend you at least to be there 2 or 3 days before, and then to leave a few days after, because you won't really have the time also to explore the area. Yes, so these are my main tips for intense yoga teacher training. I've never done a 1 year or 2 years yoga teacher training, so I'm not really able to give you information about that. The last part of this video, then I will wait your question if you do have some. It's dedicated to not online yoga teacher training, because actually 200 or 300 hours teacher training, I would absolutely not suggest to do it online, also because they are quite expensive too, and I think you don't really get what you can have in an intense yoga teacher training or in a 1 year or 2 years yoga teacher training. I would suggest online courses to add hours in your Yoga Alliance hours. I don't know how to say it, but like a lot of schools are certified with Yoga Alliance, and what you need Yoga Alliance for, it's basically to be able one day to teach yoga teacher trainings. So to be an advanced teacher, it's not really needed here in Italy to teach. Actually, you don't need to be signed in Yoga Alliance, but at the same time, growing up, maybe you are interested into leading yoga teacher training courses, and that's why you might need to be registered as a Yoga Alliance yoga teacher. I want to go in depth with that, also because I don't remember a lot, so I might have to read a bit more about that. But what I was saying before is that I would suggest you to actually do online courses just after you've done a yoga teacher training course, after you've done the 200 hours. And I would suggest to do that just on short courses, so maybe like a 10 hours course or a 50-hour course, and I would suggest you to do it after 200 hours, just because after that you will be more aware about what you're interested at. You might have students in your classes, and you might need and you might want to do some shortest courses to implement your way of teaching, or maybe if you do have, like, let's say a pregnant student or someone who have like physical problems, you might want to do those like tiny courses to actually implement your way of teaching. So I would suggest you to do that online courses, just like short courses, and just to implement the way you're teaching. I hope I have been clear with that. If not, you can write me a question below, of course. So this is basically what I would suggest you about yoga teacher trainings. I really hope my experience have been helpful to you, and of course, if you do have any question about how to choose a yoga teacher training or about anything else that would be related to that video, please feel free to leave that question below. I would be more than happy to share with you more of my experience. Thank you so much if you have been going through all that video, and if you have been enjoying what I've been speaking about. It was a long time that I really wanted to share those information with you, and if you'd like, you can subscribe to my channel to sustain me and to support me. Thank you so much for having been with me during that time, for your presence here. I wish you a wonderful day as a wonderful and shining human being you are, and I see you in the next videos.